Hello, this is Richard C. Wilson from the Family Office Club. We're doing a member spotlight interview today. Today we have with us Michael Scott as well as Peter Dougherty. Welcome both of you.
Thanks, Richard. Appreciate having us on.
Thank you, Richard.
Sure. So why don't we go Michael first and just introduce yourself, maybe just a quick summary of what you do at Cannapreneurs.
Sure. I'm CEO and founder of Cannabis Partners, and we're a cannabis-based holding company. And essentially, what we focus on is finding amazing entrepreneurs. That's part of the reason why I asked Peter to come on board because he would be an example of one of those entrepreneurs we find. So what we do is we like to find these early stage businesses. We like higher risk investments, early stage. And essentially, we like to bring capital, business strategy, and leadership to the table to help for explosive growth.
Okay, great. And Peter, I know you met Michael, and then that's how we all connected here for this call to kind of explore what you both do and how they relate to each other. So can you explain a little bit about your company and what you're up to?
First of all, I want to thank Michael because he's made my day because I can tell my wife that somebody said I was amazing on a Friday morning. So I'm going to utilize that. CEO of Orion Partners, which is a enabling technology for the cultivation production market. And essentially the problem we're solving is helping these multi-state operators that have acquired a number of properties figure out how to use those systems to scale production because they're struggling with that right now. And especially given the time that we're going through right now with C-19, the ability to take an asset that they've spent hundreds of millions of dollars on and enable them to create more grams per square foot with that production is a great outcome for them. So that's what we're up to.
Okay, sure. And I know, Michael, you look at a deal a day, literally, sometimes more in the cannabis space. And when you look at startups, everyone has great projections. No one's showing a bad projection. So how do you sift through all of that? You obviously thought Peter was a top 1% or 0.1% of all the stuff that you're seeing. Can you talk to us a little bit about, your mentality on picking the teams and picking the leaders and how you came to pick Peter?
Sure. I mean, it's a skill that's been developed over time, and I would tell you it's not always easy to do because I mean, if you think about founders and CEOs and polished leaders that have sales skills, they can oftentimes be very intriguing. And you kind of caught up into everything, but it's important, in the world of private placement investing. It's critical that you're really understanding all the risks, and I tell investors, because the second part of what we do is we invest directly in companies like Peter, but then we also help, bring in strategic investors, both smaller and larger investors to help, boost these businesses through to the next level. So it's critical for us, because we, basically live and die based on our reputation and our track record. So it's critical for us to make sure we're vetting, we're understanding every risk, we're understanding, hey, what's the likelihood of this entrepreneur being successful? And so, one of the things about Peter that I thought was interesting, and part of the reason why I personally invested in Peter, and I was one of the very earliest stage investors, is number one, I believed in Peter. I just felt a sincere sense of integrity, and I believe in vetting for integrity. A lot of businesses don't focus on that as much. But number two, I also think that the marketplace, has to actually have a need for a service. And Peter, I simplify what his company does and taking, these cultivations that have millions and millions of dollars worth of cannabis growing and helps them really optimize that grow, and the slightest fine tuning of that environment really can help create, millions and millions of dollars per quarter of extra yield. Or the other side is you prevent it from actually falling apart. And when you look at globally what's happened to the public markets, a lot of these companies, one of the areas they were weak in and why the stock prices declined, they weren't hitting their revenue numbers. So Peter's kind of technology, hardware, and software directly hits kind of what a big gaping gap is in the industry. And I actually learned this from you, Richard, is I look for choke points in an industry. I believe that is a choke point. So I believe I found a guy that's actually got a value proposition to help blow through a choke point. And now he's even fine tuning, and we're kind of redesigning the monetization model, where I think he's making it even bigger no brainer for these businesses to hire him.
Right, right. So if we zoom out, it's basically, Cannapreneurs is not an investment bank. It's not, a placement agent capital raising team. It's really a holding company. So you're
Yep.
really acting differently out there than other organizations. You're not a family office, and you're also not an operator of a single cultivation
Yep.
spot. And so what you're seeing is kind of the view of the forest and how now all these cultivation centers are open, some of the retail centers, all these different iterations on, CBD and cannabis related products. And I guess you're saying that Peter's software and solutions are able to optimize the output. And now that things are actually operational across hundreds of locations, if not thousands, you can optimize that output and their net profits and their ability to be very effective versus like at the beginning, it was a huge rush just to get permits and a rush to get open and a rush to see if it was all kind of
Absolutely.
real operationally. And now we're at that, it's still maybe the third or fourth inning, but now there's a lot of real businesses out there that need optimization. I guess that's what this is filling the need for.
Absolutely. And as Peter was pitching me, and he's phenomenal at what he does in pitching. In fact, Peter's raised over 100 million, in the tech sector before he got into cannabis. So he's good at what he does, but I couldn't believe everything he was saying at face value, right? You just can't. That's not the way it works when you're doing the Shark Tank game, right?
Right.
So, even though he's talking about these increased yields, I had to validate that, right? So I said, great, give me, some of the names of who's utilizing your stuff. And to my shock and surprise, he's actually already working with some of the biggest brands in the industry. And so I said, hey, I'd like to talk to that cultivator. And I didn't just talk to him on the phone, but at first I talked to him on the phone, then I went there in person. And then I actually got in the trenches, learned why does he believe Peter's software and hardware is valuable?
Mm-hmm.
And what I quickly learned was, this particular big multi-state operator had 11 cultivations in various states around the country. And he said, look, we're out producing and out yielding all of the other sister cultivations because of Peter. And then he said, he went on to say, I actually believe we're on our way to actually creating some of the best yields and creating a world record. Now, maybe that's true, maybe it's not. But one thing I did walk away from knowing is at the end consumer level, he was a raving fan of Peter's product, right? Then I brought him to one of my portfolio companies and, to further vet him, because I said, you know what, I want to see if the CEO of my cultivation and retail business, and, the actual cultivator themselves will also feel the same way as that other, maybe somewhat biased cultivator. They
Sure.
basically hired him on the spot in the second meeting, right? So I started getting real world proof and validity that the end consumer wants what he's delivering. And
Right.
that's important. You have to do that when you're vetting these businesses.
Right. Yeah. And so if an investor is listening to this, maybe they've invested in cannabis before, maybe they have not. Either way, what do you think the number one due diligence question is? Peter or Michael, that somebody should be asking you. Most people don't, and you don't know why they're not. They're asking other questions because their knowledge is here and it's not up here. They don't know what they don't know. Is there any suggestions you have for if they're looking at an investment with one of you two or a different investment in the industry, what to ask?
Yeah. So I think one of our differentiators, one of our edges, it's very common for businesses to look at pro formas, to look at the pitch decks, look at the legal documents. Like I look at those as, yes, those are must do's, right? One of the different things that we do is I'm really big on track record of success, right? So if somebody that I'm meeting is pitching me has a consistent and compelling track record of success, that's one of the biggest predictors of future success. But then I go a level deeper. What I'm really vetting for, Richard, is emotional intelligence. Because in the cannabis industry, you're going to get more curveballs than most industries. If you can't make it in other industries, you're not going to make it in this one. So that was one of the things I vetted for with Peter. He's delivered 5x returns to previous investors. He's raised over $100 million. He's actually already done what he's doing in the cannabis industry in other industries, right? So these are one of the key things, because now if I've got a track record of success, I've got something that I can, build integrity and trust and confidence on. So
Right. So Peter, I know Michael looks at you and, he's basically saying it's about the leader, it's about the team, it's about the track record of success. We talked a little bit about the macro opportunity, but you yourself investing your own time and energy in this, dedicating, years of your life, getting this off the ground, getting it fully up to speed, et cetera. What would you say you're most focused on to make this a big success, or what else besides your own track record and kind of that macro view do you think investors should be, could keep in mind or be thinking through, while speaking to you?
Yeah, I think track records are really important, but that's really all they are, is a record of the past. And what you're investing in is today that person's ability to execute based on the market requirement and the solution they're bringing to the table. And the driver behind that in every case, in every company I've been in, this is my 5th early stage company, is the team. And so what I try to do is attract rock stars. Most of the guys I'm working with, I've worked with in 2 or 3 companies previously. So number one, we've worked together. We know how to operate together. And then what we've done is attracted additional rock stars to help us execute. And I think just to reflect back something that Michael said, one of the really important, so I've got we're a seed stage company at this point, but I've got the GM from Amazon as an investor, the former CFO and vice chairman from GE as an investor. And Michael's the only one that came in, met the grower, and the grower literally said to him, we went from 40 grams a square foot to 90, which 90 grams a square foot to them means $10 million a year in return on investment. Wow. The reason I was able to do that wasn't because of my track record. It's because of the guys I've got around me from an engineering perspective that do all the work behind the curtain to make sure that we can drive value for customers. And what happens is when you can drive grams per square foot production increases, the ROI is 1 growth cycle for our platform right now. So it's really compelling. But the center of that universe is the team and their ability to operate and compete in a really difficult and wild and woolly market, which is the cannabis market.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. I mean, that's amazing results. I would guess that even if they increase production by 7%, it would probably more than pay for your solution. I mean,
7% to them is $1 million a year on an annualized basis, Richard, and our cost is $50,000.
So if they improve by 1 or 2%,
exactly,
they get their money back.
Exactly.
Yeah, interesting. Wow, that's pretty enormous potential numbers there. And you have a functional product. It sounds like already you're able to be beta testing this with some additional.
Yeah, so we're in commercial deployments with a couple of the large multi-state operators, a few others that we're going to pilot with, and then a bunch of single-site operators that are mostly strategic implementations. So what we decided to do, we've done tech before, and what we decided to do was build the product, beta test it, and then announce it to the market, not the other way around. So it's a commercial release product now.
That's smart. Maybe that comes from your tech background of knowing just how hard it is to raise capital when there's nothing functional yet, there's nothing proven yet, there's no track record, there's no ROI on the people using it. I mean, that is it's very hard to raise capital for something like that.
Exactly.
Versus having beta test examples and pointing to it, because those people might become your investors, first of all, and then second of all, you can just have them go visit it like Michael did. So out of everything we've talked about, I think that is very interesting for anyone listening to this because it's so rare. A lot of pre-seed companies don't have that. So if someone's listening and they're about to launch a company, I would definitely get something commercially viable before they raise capital, if at all possible. And usually people just have the attitude of, oh, that's not possible. We need to raise $5 million first. Otherwise, we don't have anything to deploy yet, et cetera. And it's a chicken and egg situation that I guess you guys have been able to navigate.
Yeah, it's really interesting because we've done it before. The majority of the team works because they're dedicated to the idea. They work for equity only right now until we close the Series A, and then they go on salary and equity. Okay. So it's sort of the special forces version of how to start an early stage company and get a team that's dedicated to each other, the ideals of what you're going to build, go out and build it, and then get paid for it, not the other way around.
Right. Yeah, that's great. That's different than how a lot of people approach it.
Yep.
Anything else that one of you want to communicate during this interview before? I know we maybe not got a chance to ask some of the questions you might have liked me to, but anything else you want to address?
I'll let Michael go first.
I don't know. Let me see. Anything else I'd like to address? I mean, I don't know. I guess I'd just say a kind of a message to investors is that right now, with everything that's going on, I know a lot of the world is kind of going into defense. I think this is one of the best damn times ever to be in offense. And I think that you're going to get the best deals in private investments. I think if you're looking at publicly traded investments, I think it's really difficult to focus on positivity during chaotic times, but I think
Yep.
for those who do, man, there's just tremendous opportunity. So I would just say, for investors, the opportunistic, I think right now, an investment offering, like Peter's, tech and cannabis or cannabis overall, it may not be first thing that comes to mind. But what you got to remember is, if you pick the right player in an already depressed market, and then you take a very nascent market like cannabis, it gets even more beat up because of the volatility. While you're getting some amazing, amazing prices, and psychologically, people don't think like that, right? When a price is going
Right.
down, like, oh, it's junk, I don't want to go in. Oh, I want to buy it when it's going up like this. Guess what? When your share price is expensive, it's the worst possible time to buy.
Right.
People applied the logic of grocery shopping, and like if you see tuna at a discount, it makes sense to buy twice as much, right? But people
Right.
apply that to investing, and so this is why your average, your average what we call odd lot investor actually loses when it comes to the investment game. The vast
Hmm.
majority
Right.
don't come close to getting what the S&P 500 index will make.
Right, right. Yeah, no, definitely a very good point. And I think that's relevant to anybody listening. If you have some liquidity or the ability to invest a little bit, it's going to get you a lot more than it will 3 years from now, assuming things recover, or 18 months from now, and a vaccine is out and things have mostly recovered, et cetera. So, Peter, anything else from you before I wrap it up?
Two things, if you don't mind. One is
Sure.
the reason Michael and I are working together is because of the ethos with Michael is approaching the market, and his ability to dig in, do the work, and then understand how to operate in difficult times, these are the times to define people and define who you are as a person, I think, the most difficult things. And then secondly, what makes this different, what we're doing right now is the technology that we're using to enable these large operators is a virtual system. So we can operate where, the market right now, there's no travel,
Right.
nobody's jumping on planes. We're doing an installation right now virtually with one of the largest operators in Canada and everything's going to be virtual. So we're
Nice.
literally installing. So we're a pick and shovel company, but the picks and shovels are really data that travels virtually. So it's a great time to
Right.
be a virtual implementation company like we are.
Right, right. Yeah, that's great. And subscription, recurring revenue companies are the
Exactly.
hot thing of the last 3 to 5 years. Everyone's going that direction, from Microsoft to even our family office club is subscription based. So you guys are kind of on point there too, which is great. Awesome. Well, then what would be the best thing for someone to do if they wanted to reach out to learn more? Where can they get a hold of you guys and start a conversation?
So, if they're wanting to learn just about cannabis investing overall, wanting to get in touch with me, cannaperpartners.com would be the best bet in terms of, finding me. And you can actually learn about Peter's company either, through me. And of course, the viewpoint I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you kind of from an investor's realm, kind of what you should be thinking about, both the risks and the reward. And then, Peter, if you want to share your website, we'll certainly reach out to you directly as well.
Yeah, orionpartners.org. ORION.
Okay.
Partners.
Great.
And appreciate the opportunity, Richard. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem at all. And once our live events start back up in a couple months, when the CDC gives us a thumbs up, then we'll see you both maybe at one of those live events here soon.
Look forward to it.
Take care.
Thanks.
Cheers.